Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Shamrock Quilt Studio. I've got a little trick I want to show you today, and I want to show you how I created a little tool that's going to help us with getting our binding pressed. Something to speed things along and make it a little more accurate. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and thanks for joining me today. I did a short a little while back about pressing our binding, and the short was spurred on by a video I saw on YouTube, which reminded me of how I used to press my binding. And what I used to press my binding, I used to stick some pins into my ironing board cover and then pull that bias strip through that to get it folded. And I got to thinking about it after I saw that video and realized I had done that before, and why did I stop? I think it just got to be too difficult, or I was working on wider bindings. I just didn't have needles that were long enough to do that. So I was thinking about that, and I tested out the theory again on this binding that we used for the Black Bear quilt project, and it worked great. And so I went back to that video and looked at it again and decided to make a dupe of what she uses that might work for me. And that's her binding board. And if you're interested in seeing the original video, it's a video by Terry Rowland, and I think her channel is called T Row, the letter T, R-O-W, and then Quilts, maybe? I'm not sure. I think if you get that far, it will probably send you to the right channel. So what I did was I used the theory of being able to iron these and fold them in half at the same time, and kind of looked at how she made her board and decided how I could do it. Now, I found a small board at Lowe's. This is a very lightweight board. I think sometimes the craft boards at, I know they have them at Hobby Lobby. They may have them at Michael's as well. But you want a little board. Oh, the pins are in there. Okay, we won't take those out right now. Anyway, you want a little board, and the board that I got was 6 inches by how many? That's a great question. 24, so that's 12, 13. I think my board was about 24 to 25 inches long, and I cut it in half. And my husband and I were in Lowe's, and we were looking for an inexpensive little saw to saw it. And nothing was in the cheap range. Everything was almost 20 bucks or more that would work for this. So I just took a box cutter and I scored my line with a little X-Acto knife to start with, right in the middle, right halfway. And then I put it on a work surface that I wasn't concerned about it getting damaged or it damaging anything. And then I just cut down that scored line on both sides over and over and over. And then I would gently bend it, and I could hear the wood fibers just beginning to pull apart, and I would stop and I would score a couple more times, and I would do it again. And as soon as I would hear those wood fibers begin to pull away from each other, and you have to listen closely, but it's very easy to tell what it's doing. I just kept doing that until it got just so flimsy that it just popped in half. And it made a really neat cut. I didn't have to sand it or anything or trim it up. If you had a chop saw, you could just simply put it on that chop saw. It might be a little rougher, but you could do that. Or if you had a little hand saw with a fine blade, you could use that. But I took that board, and that's, like I said, that's about 16 by 12, that's about 6 by 12, 5.5 to 6 by 12. Cut it in half, and then I took some leftover quilt batting, and I just used one piece. You could use more if you wanted to. and I just folded it over and used my zipper foot to sew a seam very close to it. It has virtually no give in the batting. It's pretty stiff to it. And then I used some pinking shears to trim it up really close. And then I took a piece of fabric, and let's see if you can see this here. In fact, we may come a little bit closer. Let's see if we can get this a little bit closer. Oh, that's good. Sorry if that was a little fast. That little controller doesn't give me the option of doing it slow. But I'd sewed on some lines with some short stitches with a dark thread, 1/2 inch apart. So I just as many as you think you need. And then I sewed on one with a light thread that's 1/4 inch spacing. And then I have one here that's drawn that I neglected to sew. But you could do this just about any way you want to. And then I took that fabric and kind of made a little bag to put over it. And mine is nowhere near perfect. My lines went further than my side of my board. And then I can take these doll needles and put them in here, and I've got exactly the right length. If you see, here we've got exactly 1.5 inches, which is what this was. So now if I were using this, I would have this on my ironing board, have my iron, then I would fold the beginning piece in half and press it a little bit just so it's easier. And then I'm going to run that fabric through the first needle, get it straight, and then over under the second needle. Now, that's the hardest part. So now we've got this. And then all of this over here would be unpressed. It's just going to be your 3-inch strip that you want to turn it into an 1.5 inch strip. You're going to set your iron down, and you're just going to pull this fabric through. And on this side, you're just going to want to kind of get it close to matched up on the ends, just so it doesn't go askew on you and do something crazy. But you can hold that iron down. The weight of the iron will hold it in place. The metal of the doll needles will help keep it hot and keep it elevated just a smidgen, but close enough that it's going to do the job for you. And you're just going to pull it through. Now, if you have an exceptionally long piece, like you're doing binding for a quilt, I probably would lift that iron up occasionally, give it a minute or two, and then put it back down, just so you don't unnecessarily scorch your board. And then you'll just pull it all the way through with your iron on top. And when you get to the end, you just slip it all the way out, and you've got your binding. You remove your iron. If you needed a different size, you just adjust where your needles are in here. If you need to wash it, take your needles out, pull your cover off, and wash it. Now the good thing is this is a piece of wood. This is not a piece of plywood. There's no glue in this wood, so you don't have to worry about the glues getting hot and either separating or having fumes come out. Of course, it's a product, so you don't want it the iron to sit on there indefinitely, because it will scorch, and it could eventually, if you don't have an automatic shut-off iron, it could cause a fire. So you'd want to not leave it unattended, just like you would your iron. Normal ironing precautions. But that's going to be available for you to do your binding board on. Again, it is wood. I would not use paper or cardboard or foam core board or anything like that. You need something like wood, or you could use metal, I suppose, but that's going to get really hot, and I think you're going to burn yourself. I think wood is your best choice. And it's very thin. It's probably less than 1/4 inch thick. So that's your binding board, and then you can just store this away on a shelf or in a drawer. I'll probably put mine in my table drawer, and I'll have it ready when I'm ready to make some binding or some bias tape. Now, the one caution I will give you if you're doing a bias is that you may want to have that iron come up a little more frequently, because when you pull on bias, it causes the fibers to stretch and they get a little narrower. So whereas this is going to stay at its nice shape, when you do it on a bias, it's going to pull and get narrower. So you may want to pull it, set it down, pull it up, pull it, set it down, and see how that works for you. If you've got some fabric that doesn't pull the fibers this way too much, you could use it the same way. Or if you are not concerned about the effect of doing that, you could do that. You just want to maybe take a little piece and experiment and see how that works for you. That's my little tip today for making a binding board that should make making your binding and pressing it a little bit easier. I know for me in making this, it worked great the way it was intended to. But this is straight a grain and not bias. So that's my little tip today about making a binding board. I hope this will be as helpful for you as it was for me. I appreciate being able to be reminded through a YouTube video about how I used to do it. Imagine that we did something one way and then you forget all about it. So it's good to have that reminder, refresh yourself. And hopefully this will be as helpful for you as it was for me. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next week at the Shamrock Quilt Studio.